Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today I want to talk about the Union officer pictured here. His name is Harrison Carroll Hobart, Dartmouth, class of 1842, successful attorney in his home state of Massachusetts and later his adopted state of Wisconsin, where he also served as a state legislator. This is before the war. When the Civil War began, he left behind everything and joined the Union Army. That was just 2 weeks after the bombardment of Fort Sumter. He very much wanted to help put down the rebellion. 2 years later, as colonel of the 21st Wisconsin Infantry, he suffered a wound and fell into enemy hands at the Battle of Chickamauga. He was sent to Libby Prison with a number of others, wound up being in Richmond, confined, and he remained there until February 9th, 1864, when he was part of a group of 109 Union officers who tunneled out of the prison and made their escape into the countryside outside Richmond. Like many of the escapees, he wound up in the vicinity of the Chickahominy swamplands. And as many prisoners also did, they paired up with other comrades. In the case of Hobart, he paired up with Theodore S. West of the 24th Michigan Infantry. The two men, as many escapees did, they traveled by night. They remained in hiding and tried to rest during the day. One of those evenings when they were out, they saw or came in contact with two other escapees. One of those escapees, those two other men, was Lieutenant Colonel William B. McCreary of the 21st Michigan Infantry. In 1889, McCreary told his story in a paper titled My Experience as a Prisoner of War and Escape from Libby Prison. In that paper, McCreary tells the story of an encounter between Colonel Hobart and an enslaved man. The story is, I think, representative of the many stories of men and women and children of color who helped Union soldiers escape from various places across the South throughout the war. This particular recounting is interesting to me because the writer also reveals just how vulnerable the enslaved man was. So let me get into the account. It will give you a sense of what exactly happened. So here we go. Again, this is McCreary writing in his 1889 paper. And they're partway through the escape. McCreary writes, on Saturday night, it was the turn of Colonel Hobart to act the part of picket and pilot, and while rapidly leading the way through a forest of low pine, we suddenly found ourselves in the presence of a rebel cavalry reserve. The men were warming themselves around a smoldering fire, and their horses were tied to trees around them. Turning to us, the colonel gave the signal of danger. Surprised and alarmed, we remained motionless, but perceiving that our presence was unobserved, we very noiselessly withdrew. We knew that there must be vedettes sitting somewhere near at the front in the darkness, and to escape discovery, we retraced our steps about 2 miles to a plantation which we had passed a short time before. After consultation among the prisoners, we decided to visit a Negro cabin and, if possible, ascertain the location of the picket line in our front. Colonel Hobart was selected to visit the cabin and interview the inmates while we lay down upon the ground at the door to listen to what was said. He, Hobart, knocked at the door, but receiving no response, lifted the latch. The door opened, and an old Negro jumped from his bed. Remember, it's night, and inquired, "What do you want?" The colonel, Hobart, replied, "I'm a traveler and have lost my way, and am here seeking information." The Negro replied, "Go to Massa Dibble at the White House on the hill, and he will direct you." By this time, the Negro had dressed himself and, approaching the colonel, said, "Are you not one of the Union officers recently escaped from Richmond?" He replied in an instant, was Hobart, "Yes, I am. And there are 3 more at the door. We are here because we know that every black man is the friend of the Union soldier and of the cause for which we contend. We are here because we know you will not betray us. We are in trouble and seek information in regard to the rebel picket line. Can you? And will you aid us?" "Yes, I can and will," he replied. "But if it should ever be known, my life will pay the forfeit. I'm a slave, and I have a wife and 2 children who look to me for protection. I will do all I can for you, but remember, I am in great danger." After giving us a bowl of milk and a piece of cornbread, he bade us follow him and, leading the way, brought us to a thicket in the woods where we sat down on a log and listened to all he had to say. He was intelligent, acquainted with every foot of the country, and knew the location of every picket post. But he would not for some time consent to act as our pilot, fearing that he might be discovered. We at last prevailed upon him to go with us, and, after following his lead for 3 miles in silence, he said, "You have now passed the picket line and will soon reach Diascom Creek, which you will cross on the bridge. Once across the bridge, you will be on neutral ground and comparatively safe. Look out for the rebel scouts who visit the creek every morning." We gave the Negro all the money we had, and, bidding him goodbye, he started for home, and we for the Union lines. If good deeds are recorded in heaven, this slave's name appeared in the record that night. A really powerful story, and particularly interesting because we get a real sense that this enslaved man was putting it all on the line. He had a wife and 2 children and was putting not only them, but also himself in grave danger should he be found out. In this case, he successfully helped Hobart and his 3 comrades, pointing them to safety. We don't know what became of the enslaved man. Was he found out? Did someone turn him in? Did someone see him? We don't know. We'll never know. But we do know what happened to Hobart. He and his 3 comrades made a successful escape. They arrived safely to Union lines, and it turned out that there were 48 among the 48 of the 109 who evaded recapture by the Confederates. Hobart pretty soon went right back into the army, right back into the war. He returned to the 21st Wisconsin, who were at that time in April 1864 stationed at Lookout Mountain in Tennessee. He and his men went on to fight in the Atlanta campaign, the March to the Sea, and the Carolinas campaign. After the war, he returned to the state legislature in Wisconsin and lived until age 87, dying in 1902. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.